If it's in your spirit to say it, just say it.
Let's sit down. Let's have a discussion.
You told me what was wrong with you.
I was so used to being a unit that I don't think I knew what it was like to just be me.
Sometimes the music is praise and worship. Sometimes it's You know, it just depends on what I'm needing at the moment.
Ageless, fearless, and it's unscripted.
The key word is unscripted.
You are here today for my amazing podcast, Ageless, Fearless, and Unscripted. Hi, this is Dr. Cheryl P. Williamson, and you are joining me at the Ageless, Fearless, and Unscripted podcast. This is a place to be seen, heard, loved, valued, and hugged on through the screen. I'm super excited today. My heart is full because I have the honor of being in the studio with none other than attorney Shonn Brown, and we're here for a intimate conversation that we know will bless so many people. Shonn, I am so honored that you chose to be here with me today. And I know that when we started off and I called you and I said, I want you to just think about it and pray about it. And I know I did. I thought about it and I prayed about what I wanted this podcast to be about. And I know in my heart that I could not do this season without hearing from you, because I've heard from so many women that have gone through loss, that have gone through despair, whether it be suddenly or what have you. And I felt like the world needed to hear from you, Shonn, that you had the voice. And so I would love for you to share your story of love with Clarence and give people the hope that I've seen in you.
Sure. No, well, I appreciate that. I know when we first talked and you mentioned it, and I pretty much immediately, I think you caught me at the right time where I am ready to share. And so we're in 2024 now. It's interesting that we are in the summertime because the summer of 2021 is when life just had topsy-turvy. So my son graduated from high school in May of 2021. And it was definitely a day of extreme emotions, very excited for his graduation. But the night after he graduated, Clarence collapsed. And we were in bed and he got up. I heard him get up. I didn't know if he was going to the restroom or what have you. And he just fell and he hit his head. And in hitting his head, because he took blood thinners, he had a heart condition, he had all sorts of free-flowing blood in his brain. So we went immediately to the hospital, and the summer that was going to be filled with excitement to get our first kid off to college was spent in the hospital. And his heart condition was really the underlying factor of all of that. So even though we got the brain somewhat right, we spent all summer long, moved my son into the summer program at his college by myself, not anticipating that I would ever be taking my 3 children to college now by myself without a partner. And then my Clarence passed September 3rd, which was Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
And Evan, my son, had been in school for about 3 weeks. So I moved him into college. Clarence was in and out of ICU. But once Evan left for college, we had to do a procedure, and Evan did get to speak with him.
Yes.
And it was the last time that he wasn't ventilated. So we wanted to make sure Evan got to talk to him before he left, and he was ventilated from that point forward. So I think the hardest part of that, in addition to just my own personal experience, is like having to talk my kids through that. And I still remember, and your question to me was kind of like, how do you deal, and I had an amazing village of people. And I was thinking about this morning. You have great support, but at the end of the day, it's you, right? And so lots of prayer, my faith, I love music. So I had the storm CDs like I Told the Storm is
Yes.
passing over, like all these songs that had the storm to do with them. But the moment, even though there were family members and very close friends who we consider family, that I had to tell my kids that their dad would not make it, was the hardest conversation I have ever had to have in my life. And it had to be direct.
Yes.
And it had to be the first thing I said to them. Dad is going to die. And I just had to pause after that. Because I know once you say anything, you try to make it flowery or it's going to be okay. I had to just come out and say it. And that was a turning point for our whole family, for me on a journey. But I think, initially I poured everything into them and neglected myself probably. But I got a lot of great messages from people, including you, who at the right time just said the right things that made me keep going. Because I had to present to them the strength and it's fine and we're going to be okay. And I also kind of learned a little bit to have that vulnerability with them too, because it's not good for them to think you can just move on. Right.
That's part, as you were saying that's what stuck out to me. It's like you were doing your best to be strong for the kids. Yeah. And inside, I know that there had to be so much going on inside of you to even get through this so suddenly, to go to bed and then life change so drastically. What would you say to someone who is in this current? It's a storm. It's a storm. That's why I would never use the word situation. No. It's a storm because storms come from all over and it's churning and you think that it's going to be all right. Yeah. Shonn, what would you say to another woman that is currently in this storm?
I would first say you can't rush it. Because I think our tendency is to, let me just get through it. Yes. Especially if you're a type A person or you're a goal-oriented or you are, you have a timeline and you try to tell yourself, okay, it's time for me to be okay. Nobody can really say what that time should be. I would say, as I reflect, and I think grief is a continuous journey, so I'm never over it. Yes. But I think about first of all, I don't remember parts of the end of 2021. I really don't. I don't know how I got through because I just, we got ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas and I wanted to make it feel like it was the same, but I don't really remember doing any of that. So I would say to give yourself the freedom to feel all the things, not rush through it. Once I kind of emerged to really more 2023, because I think I also, even though I remember 2022, I think it was as long as my kids are okay, I'm just kind of internalizing everything that is related to me. And I had really good friends they were like, you got to take a trip. You got to, and so I did do those things. And when I did, there was some guilt. But so I would say, don't rush through it. I would say, give yourself time to find yourself. So the other thing that I really realized is that I was so used to my life as we. Yes. And that was so different for me. Yes. And I'm a very outgoing person. I have tons of friends. I'm very social. Cheryl, you can't imagine like the parent parties at school when those invitations come. Yes. And it says William and Stephanie and John and Frank and then Shonn.
What does that
I was
feel like?
I got to go to this by myself. Mm-hmm. I'm on this card, and it's not like I'm divorced. Right. Not to minimize that. Absolutely. But it's not like I'm divorced, so I'm having this by myself, and he still exists somewhere. Like, it's me. And I had just amazing angels, because I literally would have friends pick up the phone and say, hey, I know this party is happening. Do you want to go together? Because I was just not going to go. And that is so not my personality.
It's not.
And so when I say like, find out who you are, I also had to, I thought I was a whole person, even though we met and got married. I was 27, we got married, and we were married for 20 years, almost 21 years.
Yes.
But I realized I was so used to being a unit that I don't think I knew what it was like to just be me. And so I went to dinner by myself one day. It was a full experience. Like, I got to go sit in this restaurant and eat, just me.
Yes.
But so I would say discovering who you are separate and apart from that person is a huge milestone and a moment.
And I truly believe that. And what I want to do is when we come back from break, I want us to have a conversation so that we can help some people discover who they are in the midst of going through the grief, not rushing themselves, and working through the storm.
Okay.
We'll be right back. In the middle of the pandemic, the Lord laid on my heart to produce a magazine, specifically Cheryl Magazine, Inspiration for the Everyday Woman. And I had every woman telling me every reason that it couldn't happen for me. That nobody was going to purchase it, that nobody was reading magazines, everybody was digital. Well, I'm here to tell you that the power of your thoughts and your mindset can change your life. This magazine is now going into its 4th year, and if you can see it closely, it has Niecy Nash on the cover. So not only are people reading the magazine, they are purchasing the magazine, and major corporations are placing ads in the magazine. What is my message to you? To believe in your dreams, to know that your mindset is your superpower, and that as long as you're breathing, anything and everything is possible. And especially when you are ageless, fearless, and unscripted like me. So if you're just joining us, I want to let you know what you have missed. I am in the studio today with an amazing and empowering woman who I have watched over the years, not just over the past few years, but over the years. And she's in here today sharing how you work through the storm. And Shonn, I want us to go ahead and jump right back into a couple of things. How do you continue to show up in the workplace in the midst of going through grief? And then how have you continued to encourage and motivate your children as they process the grief of losing their father and going off to college, because that's a big adjustment at the same time for you and them.
Yeah, indeed. So the show up piece is huge. I think it's a bit of a fake it till you make it.
Yes.
I mean, so
please say that part again.
Fake it till you make it, which applies in lots of contexts in life. But for this one, I realized that when I stress, I don't eat. So I lost a whole bunch of weight. So I was kind of feeling good. So I was like, okay, let me put my makeup on. Let me go to whatever event once I decided I was going to go. But I did usually have buffer people with me. Like, my friends really did not. They were like, once you feel like you're ready, go. But there was always somebody who was like, I'm going to this with you, or this event is happening, let's ride together.
Yes.
That was nice, because it also, when you go out into these public spaces, especially when you haven't seen people in a long time,
they don't know
the first thing they want to do is, and they do the head tilt.
Yes.
And you might
Shonn,
be feeling great
until they
want you, and then you're like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to talk about this.
Yes.
So just trying to keep that bubbly piece. I was very intentional about places that I went. As you mentioned at the beginning, I'm a lawyer. I did not do a lot of legal professional networking for about 18 months. Because Clarence was also a lawyer.
Yes.
And we did that together.
Yes.
And those were people that, while I have some really close friends, some of those people kind of probably felt like they knew us or me better than they knew me, and they would want to really talk about it. So the fake it till you make it is the first thing. And then I think you do have to do it, though. You can't just be a hermit. You can't hold up.
Right.
Because you have to go forward. And I think there's also some guilt in that. I remember so our office had a bit of kind of the ability to work from home. And so, number one, stepping forward into the work piece was actually soothing in a sense, because it was, I know how to do this job.
Yes.
I get to be in control, and I'm going to be able to master this. And so this was not a foreign territory for me. And I actually felt very empowered in the workplace. But really, I was also probably disconnecting from my reality, which is what I needed at the time.
Absolutely.
But I was separating and segregating and segmenting my life at that point. But I remember one of the very first times I drove into the office. And so, I was working from home in the house that we have lived in together as our family of 5. In my, right outside of my bedroom was the office. And I felt a pang of guilt out of nowhere driving to the office, because it felt like I was moving on. And it just will hit you, And so even though work was a bit of a comfort zone for me,
yes,
doing that to an extreme at some point became a space where I felt like I was leaving him behind in a sense. But then, we luckily talked about so many things, and he was, I have my Clarence moments where I'm like,
I love
he's
Clarence
like saying something to me. And
yes.
I'm actually in a job transition right now, and the company that I'm going to join is parent company. The global company is based in Germany. Clarence went to Germany 4 times a year because the company that he was general counsel for had operations in Germany. So when they called me about this job, I said, Clarence sent me this job. So I embrace messages from him too, which also gave me some comfort, which kind of brings me to the kids, because that was your second piece. So I have 3 kids. Each of them has handled it differently. I mentioned my son. So he's the only boy. I have a boy and 2 girls. It's tough on each of them, but I think it has been the toughest on him. Okay. He's the only man in the house. Now, we even have 2 dogs and they're girls. So everybody's a girl. But, he left. And it was like a conversation with myself internally to literally kick him out of the nest.
Wow.
Because he was like, maybe he goes to school in North Carolina.
Okay.
Should I transfer to SMU? Do I need to come back to Dallas? He was, 18 and a legal adult. Do I need to help run the household? And that's not what your father would want. No. And so the way to parent him, and he emotes quite a bit. And so he has been great about expressing his feelings. But I probably have to minimize my emotion a bit with him in order to allow him to feel that emotion.
Exactly.
And to push him forward. Because the very last thing that Clarence would want, and I definitely don't want, is for him not to achieve all the things that we put in motion for him.
Yes.
The girls are different, and they do still each have different personalities. But even though they were here, I tend to tell them about my Clarence moments, and
what do they say? What do they say when you tell them about the Clarence?
Oh yeah, Dad would definitely do that. Or we actually did a staycation recently, just like one day. And I said, guys, Dad would never do this, because he was always, first of all, he didn't like to drive more than 4 hours. So he was definitely a flyer, or maybe, yeah, but he was also not going to stay somewhere that was like less than an hour from his house. Okay. So he would rather drive home and sleep in his own bed. And so we all kind of had a laugh about that. And I try to bring it up. I wear my necklace that I have on every day. So it has all 5 of our birthstones. And then I have these bracelets that some friends gave me, which is his and their birthstones. And so I just have my little close memories that I try to do to help them stay close, remember. When he was passing, we had the benefit of kind of preparing for the fact that it was going to happen once he had been sick for so long. And we used this thing called tiny prints or thumbprints. And so we got his thumbprint before they took him away. And for Christmas that year, I gave everybody a piece of jewelry with his thumbprint. So my daughter and I have a bracelet. One of them has a charm for her necklace. My son has a ring. And we kind of wear them on special occasions. Like the youngest one graduated from 8th grade the May after he passed. And we all wore our thumbprint jewelry, and we took a picture with all the jewelry. So it was like he was there with us, you know. My daughter who graduated from high school this year, she wore a bracelet that he gave me for graduation. So I constantly, because the girls won't talk about it a lot on their own, but I want them to know it's okay to talk about it. At the same time, like my middle one, she was going to a Harry Styles concert the night of the funeral services. We had a memorial service all day, and you know how it is, family all over the house.
Right.
And, you know, great aunt who's like, oh, I haven't seen you since you were, you know, and people were like, you're going to let her go to that concert with her friends? And I said, that's what she wants to do. We are all, otherwise, what would she be doing? Sitting up in her room, waiting for people to talk to her, and this is how she wants to process it. But I want to meet her where she is, right? And then our youngest one, you know, I think for her, she's kind of the baby of the family, and so she kind of is observant. But she and I have had the opportunity to have some conversations, because at this point, we're going to be the only two at home.
Two in the house.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that is, Shonn, you have that space to be there with her and just love on her, and you all continue this process together.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for the way that you have come in and opened your heart to each person that will listen to Ageless, Fearless, and Unscripted, because sometimes we think that everything is all scripted and life is going to go exactly as we planned it. And the beautiful thing about you, Shonn, is that you have weathered the storm. You are taking things one day at a time. You're not apologizing to anybody about how you feel. And the way that you have expressed yourself here today, it is blessing some people, because people feel like they have to be everything to make other people feel good to be in their company, but they're the ones that's grieving.
Yeah.
So I thank you for allowing me the honor of hearing the love story of your family and your amazing Clarence, and how you're keeping his memory alive. I love you and I appreciate you, and I will continue to love you, check on you, and when the Holy Spirit tells me to send you that message,
Please do.
I will be sending it to you.
Right,
so I thank you so much.
Absolutely. Love you so much. Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you very much.
So my heart is full in this moment. And I know that if you are a part of this segment, your heart has to be full as well. The prayer that Shonn and I have for you is that you will go through what you need to go through in this life, be what you need to be for yourself without worrying about how other people are going to feel. Realize that life will bring things to you that will absolutely break your heart, bring you to your knees. But when you keep God in your life, He will bring you through, and you don't have to rush through for anybody else. We will come back in a moment, because I want you to know how you can reach out to Shonn. So make sure that you tune right back in with us. What are the power of affirmations? The Lord gave me 365 positive thoughts and actions to start my day every day. And then He said, Cheryl, if I blessed you in this way, I need you to place it in a book so that other people, when they struggle for affirmations to speak over their life, they have a lifeline. So He created, through me, affirmed 365 thoughts and actions to start your day. Hi, everybody. We are back with Dr. Cheryl P. Williamson and the Ageless, Fearless, and Unscripted podcast. If you missed the show today, you need to go back and listen to it. Right now, I am in the studio with the amazing Shonn Brown, and I want to make sure that you have a way to contact this amazing woman that God created for such a time as this. Shonn, please tell everybody how we can be in contact with you.
Sure. I think the best way to reach me would be via LinkedIn. And I use my maiden name as well. So it says Shonn Evans Brown. But I'd be glad to receive any messages and hopefully I can be a blessing to somebody else.
You have blessed my spirit just by being here today. I thank you for your yes. I thank you for being ageless, fearless, and coming in here being unscripted. For those of you who have tuned in, I thank you for being a part of the Ageless, Fearless, and Unscripted family. Make sure that you invite others to join us at Cheryl P. Williamson on my YouTube channel, and we will see you next time. Until then, remain ageless, fearless, and unscripted.